Hi, this is Kathy Goodwin, and today we're going to talk about how relocation changes your identity. This is based on my ebook, which is available at this link, relocationstrategy.com. It was first published by New Harbinger. I revised it and recently updated it because things have changed in the last 10 years. This video was inspired by an article in today's Wall Street Journal. After divorce or job loss comes the good identity crisis. The article pointed out that when people have a life crisis, such as a divorce or a job loss, they expect to recover in a few months, and their friends start saying, you should be all better now. But the truth is it can take 2 years or even more to recover, and if you try to speed up the process, it can actually backfire and slow you down even more. This truth also applies to relocation, as I discuss in my book. And here are just a few tips to get started. First, this is advice I'm not going to give you, because a lot of times when you get a divorce or you lose a job, the good advice you get is don't make changes right away. But that won't work in relocation, because by definition you have a major change. You cannot say this. So here are some tips. Let's start with relocation tip number 1, which is to go slow and avoid long-term commitments when possible. So when you move to your new location, you may have to buy a house right away, but if you don't, try to wait at least a year or 6 months to figure out what the lay of the land is, and then go slowly in buying the home. Make sure you've chosen a wise real estate agent, made really good connections, because when you get to know a place, it will look different. And certainly avoid joining groups, avoid making commitments to programs and volunteer organizations. When you're new, everyone's going to ask you to join their group, sign up for this. But at this point, you don't know what they're going to be like. Even if you were with a similar group in a previous location, it's going to be different here. And you need to get the lay of the land, because untangling from a commitment can be extremely frustrating, stressful, challenging, and have a lot of other bad consequences. Relocation tip number 2 is to find a safe confidant. The reason is that old friends will disappear, whether they remain in the old location or whether you rejoin them in the new. Let's say you've had these friends and you moved to New York and you've known them for years, and you said, oh, I've always come to visit, we've been great friends, we have fun together, and now that I'm here all the time, it's going to be even better. Well, the truth is, when you're there all the time, you relate to them differently. They don't pick you up at the airport and make a fuss over you anymore. You might live in different parts of the city so that it's hard to connect. A lot of times where I've lived in different places, maybe I have a car and they don't, or they have a car and I don't. I live in the center city in Philadelphia. People who live in the suburbs, I mean, they might as well be in Ohio or something. So it can be challenging just to connect face to face, and you relate differently. You talk about different things when you're in the same city than when you're thousands of miles apart. So I recommend that you find a friend, a relative, a coach, or a counselor before you move. Get someone who takes phone calls. Before you move, you're in a good position to choose someone who will be right for you. You can take your time and choose a coach you resonate with, who will understand. And when you get to the place, they will know who you are. They'll recognize you, and they'll realize what's different and what is consistent. For example, I tend to talk fast and I interrupt people because I'm from New York. If I went to a location where people talk more slowly and never interrupted, a counselor might think I was a rude person, or maybe I was just reacting to the situation by being tense. Someone who had known me, and especially someone who knew people like me from New York, would say, oh, yep, that's just you. Don't worry, and they wouldn't even take that into account. When you move, a lot of people get upset because the people they left behind seem to forget them. That's normal. You've moved, they expect you to be moving on literally and figuratively, and they will do the same. Relocation tip number 3 sounds a little Pollyanna, life coachy, do something fun every day. But the truth is, moving is so stressful, you have to pencil into your calendar time for fun. You're busy opening bank accounts, closing bank accounts, finding professionals, filling out forms. You need to take time for just you. If it's by yourself, if you're single, or with your family, get to know your city. Join groups for fun, not because you want to meet new people or have an agenda. When I moved back to Philadelphia, I joined an improv class because I liked improv and wanted to learn more. And I made a good friend, and we're still friends 2 years later. But I wasn't looking for that. I was relaxed and enjoying myself. You can also walk the dog. The dog will introduce you to new people and places you'd never encounter otherwise. If you don't have a dog, then sure, go ahead and adopt one, but be aware this is a lifetime commitment unless you foster a dog, because dogs are not like objects you buy and sell. A dog will form an attachment to you, but if you do have a dog and are prepared for that commitment, hey, great time to do it. Watch movies and read books, and TV tends to be less helpful in dealing with stress, especially after a move. Homesickness is normal. That's tip number 4. Well, everyone I know, I've always gotten homesick for something, even if I absolutely hated the place that I left. Don't be surprised if you get homesick, not for the big things, but the little things. The person you knew around the corner in the store. In my case, it was taking the dog on the bus in Seattle. I missed that a lot in Philadelphia. Knowing certain people, my massage therapist. I'll always miss my massage therapist. Can't even bring myself to look for a new one. But if it's something really big, like your child needs a special school, you will make sure before you go that you'll have that opportunity. It's the little things that sneak up on you, especially holidays and birthdays, when it'll trigger memories, because that's a special time and you have associations. Tip number 5, keep a journal. This is another life coachy type tip, but it works. In the Wall Street Journal article that I mentioned, the author interviewed a man in Relocation who had just gotten divorced. He was extremely open about his life and his experience. When they told him that it would take about 2 years to make the transition, he put a piece of paper up on his refrigerator saying 2 years and set that as a goal. He said it was like being in boot camp and overcoming an obstacle in the Army. As time went on, every few months he'd post something that he had done, a milestone he had completed, or maybe something new that he noticed was different. And I recommend you do that with a move. In fact, I recommend that in my book. I'd already anticipated this. You'll be surprised when you first move to a place. Write down your impressions, because they will change within 6 months or a year. Almost everyone I know says the things I was worried about never happened, but the things I didn't expect really snuck up on me and really, really upset me. So in the more positive side, after 2 or 3 months, you might find yourself saying, I really felt at home today when I did this, when I ran into someone who recognized me in the store. I really felt at home when I was able to do something I couldn't do a few months ago. Somebody called from my old city and I found I wasn't really missing them as much as I expected. Those are the kinds of things you want to make a note of, because if you track your progress, you'll be much more aware and you'll appreciate what you've got and what you're doing. Mistakes happen. I want to emphasize that. Sometimes your move is a mistake. The grass is greener on the other side. I really shudder when people say, if you can't be happy here, you can't be happy anywhere. That is simply not accurate. Give yourself 2 years to decide if you made a mistake. Try not to share your views with the people around you, because they won't get it. I mean, they love the city. Even if you think it's the worst place on earth that should be, removed and relocated and extradited to Mars, they love it. So keep calm and go back to your confidant, but reevaluate honestly. Sometimes people stay too long. They're in a place that just doesn't fit, and they say, oh, well, it's going to be hard. Yes, if you have a job, I'm not saying quit your job and move back or move to a different place, but be aware if a place doesn't seem to fit you, there are things you could do to compensate, and maybe you do need to move back. If you want to get more, this is only, believe it or not, the tip of the iceberg. This book covers everything. I had a lot of fun writing it, and people write me all the time to say how much they got out of it, how much they enjoyed reading it, and how in some cases it kept them going during a tough move. So I encourage you to read this. This is the second edition. Be sure you get this edition, because we changed things from the first. Some things were just out of date and didn't make sense anymore. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I really look forward to hearing your moving story. Feel free to drop me a line at my website and let me know how your move went, and I'll see you again on a future video or possibly a one-to-one consultation. Thanks again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.